In this section, we are going to learn about structuring documents. And so when I say structuring documents, you should think what? HTML or CSS? Which one? Pause the video if you don't know the answer and think about it for a second. When I say structuring documents, should you think HTML or should you think CSS? So when we talk about structuring a document, we're talking about HTML. And I just like to ask those questions because it's like a good check, right? And so maybe you're like, I totally got it, totally obvious, keep going. Or maybe, you're like, okay, cool, right, yeah, I'm getting it. So, I'm including this for everyone. So if you're an outlier and you're totally getting it, good on you. And if you're in the middle and you're just like sort of grasping it, great. That's what this is for. So we're going to learn about structuring documents in this section. And at the beginning of the course, I did a course overview where I talked about like being the analogy of a woodworker, and you have to learn the tools and you have to learn the materials. And so I just want to reinforce and like remind you of that, because what we're doing here is we're learning all these different little pieces, and we're learning all of the different materials which are out there from which we will build websites. And so this is a large piece of the work when it comes to learning how to build websites, is you just have to learn about all these different little pieces. And then once you familiarize yourself with all these little pieces, you could go create beautiful, great stuff with confidence, right? So same way in any craft, you have to learn the materials, you have to learn the tools, you have to know how all the different pieces of wood work, what their characteristics are like. And then when you're done, you could like make wise choices to build cool stuff. All right, so that's what we're doing. And this is computer science. It's engineering. This isn't over in the art building, right? Like the graphic design stuff, maybe you're getting close, but there's a lot of computer science here that requires a certain amount of precision. And so that's what we're talking about in this section. And what, a lot of this, all the stuff we've been learning about is like knowing the right material to use in the right place, the right CSS property, the right CSS selector, how those selectors work, right? We're learning that precision. We're learning the different materials which we can use to build our websites when we're done, to learn this craft. All right, so in this section, structuring documents, we're going to be learning about new HTML tags. Tags, elements, tomato, call it what you want, right? We're going to be learning about new HTML tags. And these HTML tags are going to allow us to structure our documents in a better way. And a better way means in a semantic way. So we already talked about semantics, and semantics means meaning. Semantics means meaning. I'm not sure how you say that. Semantic means meaning. And so semantic HTML, those semantic HTML are HTML tags or HTML elements which convey meaning. And so we saw a preview of that when we compared like a web page that just had divs, a bunch of divs, versus a web page that had like article, section, header, footer. It's like those article, section, header, footer tags conveyed a lot more meaning, right? The semantics means meaning. The semantic tags conveyed more meaning than just div. It's like, I don't know what all those different sections are or what content they're supposed to be holding. So one of the main takeaways from this like new section that we're learning in the course, that section word, when you start talking about sections, you get collisions and different things you're talking about. But one of the main takeaways is just this idea of like using the right tag in the right place to structure your content. All right, so that's the main thing we're learning in this section. I have a little bit of an overview here, right, where we're going to learn in this section document structure, and then everything I just told you about the importance of precision and using semantic HTML. And why is it important to have good document structure? It makes your code more maintainable, right? When you go back and look at it, when others go back and look at it, it's going to be more clear. It's going to be more readable. They'll be able to understand, oh, that's what this content is holding, right? Makes it more accessible for screen readers. And I also think it helps with your search engine rank. Because if you think about what search engines are trying to do, and you could go to Alexa's website statistics and see what are the biggest search engines, But basically when I say, search engine rank and what are search engines trying to do, I'm saying Google. Like how do you rank well at Google and what is Google trying to do? Because like 70%, 80% of search engine traffic is Google. Maybe it's even higher. They like dominate. But what is Google and what are all search engines trying to do? They're trying to deliver good content to their users. And so what's one of the ways they could evaluate whether or not, I'm sure there's like many ways they could do it, but what's one of the ways they could evaluate whether or not this is good content, this one website? How was it built? Was it built well? Because websites that were built well are going to be more likely to be good content that they'll want to deliver to their users. So it's my own speculation that building websites well with semantic HTML will help with your page, your search engine rank. Makes sense to me. All right. And then there's some terminology that you should know, right? So I thought I'd just go over that here. So we already know semantic HTML, and that's HTML that conveys meaning. It's not just div, div, div. We do use divs when we just want a container, a block level container that, is generic and doesn't have meaning. We don't want meaning in this spot. We'll use a div or no other block level container, no other block level element works in this situation. We'll use a div. So divs aren't bad. Using too many divs is bad. All right, so that's semantic HTML, or tags that convey meaning. Header, that tells us something about what's in that content. Footer, that tells us something about what's in that content. It's conveying meaning. All right, what's the difference between the terms structure and layout? People will use those terms interchangeably. There's a difference. Structure is how am I structuring my content on the page. Layout is how am I laying it out. This is up top. I'm going to shift this over to the right a little. I'm going to move it down. That's layout. Layout is laying it out on the page. Structuring it is in the HTML document. You're structuring your content. And then there's this thing called the DOM. And the DOM stands for the Document Object Model. Often in computer science, to understand a computer science term, just read it backwards. What is the operating system? Well, it makes your system operate. What is the document object model? Well, it's a model of objects in your document, right? That's what it is. And so we have different objects in our document. In computer programming and computer science, we talk about like elements or tags or things generically as objects, right? So here's an object. It's like, an article. Here's an object, it's the header. Here's an object, it's the footer. They're just different objects which the computer has to work with. And so the document object model is a model of the objects in the document, and it's laid out in a hierarchy fashion. And so it starts with document, DTD, our document type declaration. Hey, this is doc type HTML. And then it has the root element, HTML, and then that has the head and the body. Right? And so notice we're getting this hierarchical structure. And then the body has different tags and the head has different tags, and and that's how it works. And it's this hierarchical structure, this tree-like structure. And that's called the DOM, Document Object Model. So you should just be aware of that phrase. And then people will talk about document flow sometimes. So bear with me. I know this is a long lecture. Hang in there. Some people will talk about document flow. And so when they talk about document flow, they're just talking about how everything on a web page is like made up of a box. Everything on a web page is made up of a box, and those boxes stack. And so how do they just naturally, organically stack? That's the document flow. And so block level elements are going to take up a whole row by themselves and then just keep stacking from top to bottom, right? Inline elements will stack next to each other. And so that's document flow. How does it all naturally flow? And so we'll talk about taking things out of document flow when we get to layout later. And so we are going to learn about layout in a little bit. We're learning about structure right now. So we'll talk about document flow when we get to layout. But I'll say, hey, this is taking it out of the normal document flow. So I just want you to understand document flow is just how things would normally flow and line up if we didn't do anything to it. Everything's a box, and it's like a block level element, inline elements. So how does it normally just line up? That's document flow. We're going to learn about content sectioning and content categories. I'm going to talk about the HTML outline algorithm and why you shouldn't use it. Point of confusion for a lot of people. And I'll show you how to create an outline structure in your document the way you are supposed to do it. It's a little confusing. There's the outline algorithm, and then there's just creating an outline in your document. Two different things. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you some hands-on exercises to work with Semantic HTML. We're going to learn about all of these new elements tags, tomato, tomato, call it whatever you want. And then the main takeaway from this section is don't just use divs. Damn it. Don't just use divs. Use Semantic HTML. Make your HTML have meaning. A lot of people don't do it. And it takes a little bit more effort. And you have to learn these pieces, these little pieces of material. But at the end of the day, it's going to give you a better final product. So that's what we're going to be learning in this section.